Yeah, this is John Friedel, and you're watching GVTV News. So watch, and learn.
Thanks, John, and I'm Randy Hansen. In World News headlines today, Romney comes under fire at Republican debate in South Carolina, and Homeland Security hired contractor to monitor websites. And a report says U.S. concerned Israel is preparing to attack Iran. And another report, Israelis recruited militants to carry out covert ops in Iran. Ban Ki-moon to Syria's Assad, stop killing your own people. Mohammed el-Baradei drops out of the Egyptian presidential race, and Nigerian unions call for a strike to end. And Guatemala's new president tied to human rights atrocities. And El Salvador president apologizes for El Mozati massacre. And 29 still missing in deadly Italian cruise ship accident. 700,000 seek Governor Walker's recall in Wisconsin, probably because Green Bay lost. And Tucson School District releases list of banned ethnic studies. Books includes Shakespeare. And Occupy protesters mark Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And 6 arrested at Occupy Baltimore Action Emergency Manager Law protested in Michigan. GVTV News would like to say the views expressed on our news broadcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the NCTV Digital Media Center. Unlike some other news media, anyone can use any information on our news any way you want, and guess what? It's free. Do not have to subscribe for us for your daily news. But before these stories, GVTV News would like to thank one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. In today's First World News story, the 5 leading Republican candidates debated in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina last week ahead of the state's closely watched primary on Saturday. Republican presidential hopefuls Newt Gingrich, Rick Perry, and Rick Santorum repeatedly attacked frontrunner Mitt Romney's record in business and government. Texas Governor Rick Perry pushed Romney to open up his tax records and said, "Mitt, we need you to release your income tax so the people of the country can see how you made your money." And Mitt said, "And what's happened in history is people have released them about April of the coming year, and that's probably what I'd do." Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich defended his sharp criticism of Romney, and he said, "We need to satisfy the country that whoever we nominate has the record that can stand up to Barack Obama in a very effective way. And I think it's part of its responsibility, his responsibility as a candidate. And I think it's part of what the campaign is about, is to raise questions and see whether or not your competitor can answer them effectively before you get a general election where you know those questions are going to be asked." Romney said, "I oppose negotiating with the Taliban." And during the South Carolina Republican debate, Mitt Romney criticized President Obama for seeking to negotiate with the Taliban in Afghanistan. And he said, "The right course for America is not to negotiate with the Taliban while the Taliban are killing our soldiers. The right course is to recognize they are the enemy of the United States." It's the vice president who said they're not the enemy of the United States. The vice president is wrong. They are the enemy. They're killing American soldiers. We don't negotiate from a position of weakness as we're pulling our troops out. The right course for us is to strengthen the Afghan military force so they can reject the Taliban. Ron Paul said they're building up for a war against Iran. Representative Ron Paul reiterated his call to end the war in Afghanistan and bring our troops home. He said, this idea that we can't debate foreign policy, then all we have to do is start another war. I mean, it's warmongering. They're building up for another war against Iran, and people can't wait to get in another war. The country doesn't need another war. We need to quit the ones we're in. We need to save money and bring our troops home. And John Huntsman drops out of the Republican race hours before the debate. Former Utah Governor John Huntsman dropped out of the presidential race and endorsed Mitt Romney. Christian right leaders are backing Rick Santorum. In other campaign news, a group of more than 100 leaders of the Christian right met in Texas this weekend and voted to back former Pennsylvania Senator Rick Santorum as their preferred candidate. Attendees of the meeting included Family Research Council President Gary Bauer, Focus on the Family founder James Dobson, and Family Research President Tony Perkins. Meanwhile, Wyoming billionaire Foster Friess has pledged to donate $500,000 to the pro-Santorum Super PAC. And architects of anti-immigrant bill endorses Romney. The very immigration rights groups are criticizing Mitt Romney for embracing an endorsement from Texas Secretary of State Chris Kobach. Kobach helped draft anti-immigrant legislation in Arizona and Alabama, and they didn't like that. Newly released government documents have revealed the Department of Homeland Security hired the military contractor General Dynamics to monitor postings of U.S. citizens on dozens of websites. Can you say Big Brother? Sites monitored include Facebook and Twitter, as well as several news sites, including the New York Times, Wired, and the Huffington Post. General Dynamics was asked to collect reports that dealt with the government agencies, including CIA, FEMA, and Immigration and Custom Enforcement. Ginger McCall of the Electronic Privacy Information Center said the documents show the Department of Homeland Security was monitoring political dissent online. Well, I'm on Facebook. I guess they read my stuff. Wall Street Journal reports U.S. military leaders are increasingly concerned that Israel is preparing to attack Iran over an apparent U.S. objections. According to the Journal, President Obama, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta, and top officials have delivered a string of private messages to Israel leaders warning about the dire consequences of a strike. Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Martin Dempsey is set to visit Israel this weekend. The United States has also stepped up a contingency plan to safeguard U.S. facilities in the region in case of an Israeli attack. Meanwhile, the United States and Israel have postponed what they described as the largest joint military exercise ever carried out by the two nations. In Foreign Policy magazine is reporting that Israel's Mossad agents have posed as American spies to recruit members of the Pakistani militant group Jundallah to carry out covert operations against Iran. According to the report, CIA learned of the so-called false flag operation several years ago. It is unclear if the program continues. The magazine report was published just days after Iran accused Israel of assassinating one of its nuclear scientists. 12 people were killed Monday in Syria despite the presence of Arab League monitors inside the country. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called for bloodshed to end. He said, "Today I say again to President Assad of Syria, stop the violence, stop killing your own people." Which they're not listening. Mohammed el-Baradi has pulled out of the race for Egyptian presidency. Former director of the International Atomic Energy Agency said the previous regime was still running the country, and he could not run for office unless it was within a real democratic system. And the Nigerian government has announced a partial cut in gas prices following 9 days of strikes and protests backed by many of Nigeria's largest trade unions. On Monday, the Nigeria Labor Congress and Trade Union Congress called for the strike to end, but a third organization, the Joint Action Front, said the protests should continue. Abdulwahid Omar, president of Nigeria's Labor Congress, in the last 24 hours, the labor movement and its allies who had the historic responsibility of coordinating these mass actions has caused a review of various actions and decided in order to save lives in the interest of national survival, these mass actions be suspended. That's what he said. In other news from Nigeria, 2 oil workers are missing after an offshore oil rig owned by Chevron caught fire on Monday. And a retired military general, Otto Perez Molina, has been sworn in as Guatemala's new president. Perez is the first former military official to win the Guatemalan presidency since the end of the military dictatorship in 1986. And he said, "Everyone rise and fly the blue and white flag in our hearts and work for change. We'll have security if we all work for it. We will have development, and if we make an effort, we will have peace if everyone does their part, because Guatemala belongs to all of us, regardless of social or economic conditions." Otto Perez Molina ran for office in Guatemala largely on the platform of an iron fist to crack down on drug cartels. In his first days in office, Perez called on the military to help neutralize organized crime in Guatemala. Perez, who is trained in U.S. military school, formerly known as School of Americas, sounds familiar, is also seeking to end the U.S. military ban and military aid in Guatemala. Jennifer Harberry, human rights attorney appearing on Democracy Now! Last year, said, "Well, we're all extremely concerned given his background in human rights violations in Guatemala. He always declared that he was not involved in genocidal campaign in 1982 in the Quech Highlands. But in fact, a video showing Alan Narn interviewing him precisely as he stands over several battered corpses has been making the rounds in Guatemala. He was a major at the time, and this, of course, was a year from 70 to 90% of the villages in the Ixtal Triangle were razed." El Salvador's President Marico Funes apologized Monday on 1981 El Mazato massacre when U.S. trained Salvadorian forces killed nearly 1,000 civilians. Funes described it as the worst massacre in civilians in contemporary Latin American history. He said, "As the President of the Republic of the Commander of the Armed Forces, I ask forgiveness from the victims and the neighboring communities. Hundreds of Salvadorians, both men and women, formed part of a long list of disappeared people, while others immigrated and lost everything in order to save their own lives." 29 people remain missing after that Italian cruise ship ran aground Friday, killing 6 and forcing thousands to flee in a sinking ship. The ship was owned by a subsidiary of Florida-based Carnival Corporation. Italy's environmental minister has warned of an ecological crisis if oil from the cruise ship spills off the island of Giglio, part of the protected sanctuary for dolphins, porpoises, and whales. Probably the only place that Japan can't reach. Opponents of Wisconsin's Republican Governor Scott Walker say they will submit the signatures of more than 700,000 voters seeking a recall of Walker and his lieutenant governor, Rebecca Kleefisch. The signatures gathered far more than 540,000 needed for a recall. Signatures have been gathered in forced recalls in Wisconsin Senate Majority Leader and 3 other Republican senators. They all are backers of the bill that signed into law last year, effectively ending collective bargaining rights for most public workers. And news from Arizona, Tucson school district officials have released an initial list of books to be banned from the school system following last week's vote for suspend the district's acclaimed Mexican-American Studies program due to state ban on teaching ethnic studies. Banned books include Rethinking Columbus, The Next 500 Years, edited by Bill Biglio and Bob Peterson, Shakespeare's play The Tempest, Pedagogy of the Oppressed by, sorry if I mispronounced that, The History of Chicanos by Rudolfo Acuña, and Chicano, The History of Mexican Civil Rights Movement by F. Arturo Rosales Salon. Occupy, sorry if I'm mispronouncing these words, but I'm reading them fresh and I haven't seen them before. Occupy Wall Street protesters held a number of actions across the country this week to mark Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in, well, there in New York. Several protesters were arrested when they refused to leave the lobby of the Bank of America. Among those arrested is Occupy for Jobs organizer Larry Holmes. He said he was participating in civil disobedience in honor of King's legacy. He said in his later years, meaning the years before he was assassinated, he became convinced that while the ability to sit at a formerly segregated restaurant was absolutely important, if you didn't have the money to buy the food, you only had gone halfway. And his hope was to launch a new civil rights struggle for the right to a job. And that's absolutely relevant. Depression, level unemployment, and underemployment that we have in this city and the country. And that's for everybody, including me. 6 members of Occupy Baltimore and Algebra Projects were arrested Monday for trying to occupy the site of a proposed juvenile detention center. And in Michigan, Reverend Al Sharpton and Representative John Conyers and religious leaders held a protest on Martin Luther King Day outside the home of Michigan Governor Rick Snyder. They were protesting Michigan's increased use of the state-appointed unelected emergency financial managers to take over the management of predominantly cities and school districts that have large African American populations. And that's it for World News today. We would like to thank one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media. That's us, GVTV News in Nevada County.
something happening here. But what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware.
That's right, it's time for the police blotter. This comes out from the sheriff's office. And the pictures in the blotter are not from these actual events, but used for visual aid only. Grass Valley Police Department on Sunday, 10:56 a.m. A caller from 100 block of Glasson Way reported a man in emergency room was saying people were trying to get him. He had been cited by the Nevada County Sheriff's Office on suspicion of being under the influence of a controlled substance. At 11:43 a.m. he was saying people were hiding under his bed trying to harm him. He was arrested on the same charge. 12:48 p.m. caller from Condon Park reported 20 or 30 kids on bikes and scooters in the skate park. They were removed. Can't have kids in a park. What's that all about? 3:01 p.m. caller from 500 block of Whiting Street reported a possible physical fight. It was a woman watching TV. 3:54 p.m. woman from 200 block of Sutton Way reported a man knocked on her door. She did not want charges. 9:03 p.m. a caller reported a man refused to pay his taxi fare. He paid. 10:01 p.m. a caller from 100 block of West Main Street reported a man trying to start a fight who then left. And 10:11 p.m. a woman from 100 block of East Main Street reported her son had flipped out and had self-inflicted wounds to his face. He could not be located. In Nevada County Sheriff's Office on Sunday, 9:35 a.m. caller from Squirrel Creek Road and Toad Lane, oh my favorite street, reported a loose horse. 10:08 a.m. a caller from 18,000 block of Boogie Hill Road reported someone entered a residence, took a beer, and left it empty on the back deck along with the phone. Well, maybe he traded it for the beer. 10:11 a.m. a caller from 15,000 block of Chinook Lane reported the theft of a motor boat engine. 10:25 p.m. a caller from 10,000 block of John Barleycorn Lane reported the theft of a boat motor. 11 a.m. woman from Dog Bar and LeBar Meadow Roads reported her son beats her. And a caller from 16,000 block of Aliato Drive reported attempted theft of a wheel rim. 12:47 p.m. a woman from 17,000 block of Shelter Court reported a woman assaulted her on Wednesday. And 1:43 p.m. a caller from Red Dog Road and Greenhorn Creek reported vehicles in the creek bed which could not be located. And 2:19 p.m. caller from Chicago Powerhouse Road reported trespassers shooting a rifle. And 2:21 p.m. caller from 15,000 block of Brewer Road reported being attacked by a neighbor's dog. Gee, wonder what kind of dog that is. And 4:05 p.m. a caller from 19,000 block of Applewood Lane reported shots fired. 4:07 p.m. a man from 10,000 block of Gold Flat Road reported a 14-year-old girl hit him, but he did not want charges filed. 9:50 p.m. woman from 15,000 block of Wet Hill Road reported her son was having an episode and shining lights into the neighboring residence. She said he was armed with a machete. Nice family. 10:13 p.m. a woman from 10,000 block of Dana Court reported two women knocking on her door. They were runaways. 11:28 p.m. a woman from 16,000 block of Retrack Way reported a man outside screaming. His second caller reported the man was screaming he was going to kill someone and to wake up. He could not be located. Nevada City Police Department on Sunday, 7:53 a.m. a caller from 100 block of Grove Street reported a vehicle burglary in progress involving a woman. She could not be located. 12:10 p.m. caller from 100 block of Orchard Street reported a possible prowler the night before. And that's it for the police blotter today. Now we would like to thank one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News, and we're free.
Soundcheck Music Center, the rock and roll connection. We have guitars, amps, drum equipment, sound accessories, lessons, and repairs. We are located at 671 Maltman Drive, Grass Valley. 530-272-7236, open 7 days a week.
In local news headlines, rehab and memory topics of Free Talk. And leading edge of history, Max Lab now testing materials for classic cars. And local photographers work on displays at Wild and Scenic Film Festival. Today's first local story, aging its effects on the brain and possibly the rehabilitation can help people realize their full potential, will be discussed by neuropsychology expert Dr. Bonnie Connor. She's speaking 5:30 p.m. January 25th at the Quail Ridge Senior Living in Grass Valley. Understanding neuropsychology is necessary to best help people who are experiencing changes in memory and thinking. A neuropsychological evaluation can be helpful in determining ability and diminishing capacity. Through rehabilitation, people can build confidence in abilities they were able to restore or conserve, according to Connor. Connor holds a doctoral degree in health psychology and behavioral medicine, specializing in neuropsychology and rehabilitation psychology, and is presenting a new behavioral approach to help individuals dealing with reduced memory and problem solving. The free presentation is a question and answer format, so bring questions. More information, you can call Kristen Jenkins at Quail Ridge Senior Living at 272-1055, 272-1055. Center is at 150 Sutton Way in Grass Valley. In a story by Gabriel Irvine, an atomic absorption spectrometer, an electron microscope, and an inductively coupled plasma atomic emission spectrometer is just a few types of laboratory equipment that is used. It's used. However, due to down economy and a shared hobby, co-owner Jim Richards and sales manager James Long found a new way to use the lab's high-tech equipment to discover uses for vintage materials, specifically materials used on classic cars. Clientele for Grass Valley-based Mac S Labs on environmental testing and facility and specialized in asbestos and hazardous waste materials mostly are contractors, building owners, and school districts, but Richards and Holong hope to shift the business to engage car restoration enthusiasts, focusing on material science and analyzing materials used in classic cars in order to replicate and recreate the materials. There is a new market for our services, said Richards. Our company is very tightly tied to construction because the testing goes on in buildings, but the business is soft, so we are expanding to other areas to serve more people. He founded Max Lab in 1989 in Haywood and moved to business Grass Valley in 2011 in March. Works with the Roman Angel Car Club and a lot of other things. Each car has a history of significance, said Richards. People are willing to spend a lot of dough, so there's a market out there. They decided to take a scientific approach to vehicle restoration in order to be able to accurately identify and replicate materials that are non-existent or are difficult to attain. There's a lot of focus on quality materials. Currently, Richards and Long are analyzing materials on vintage vehicles such as 1928 Mercedes-Benz South Chick Roadster, hoping to increase the restoration value of the classic cars. They are in the process of analyzing and replicating rolled and cast German silver and materials that is antimicrobial in its natural form and helps kill bacteria, MRSA, and MRSA virus. We want to discover new uses for vintage materials, said Long. Our goal is to be on the leading edge of history. Long, a preservationist for the Hub Society, hopes the exercise of material science approach to vehicle restoration will also encourage youth-specific non-college-bound students to get excited about science. He is pursuing an educational research side of the business funded by material sales and hopes to engage students to seek out opportunities to learn about science. We are teaching material science on wheels, said Long. We want to get more kids involved in science. And the Wild and Scenic Film Festival that began Friday in Nevada City. Each year the festival draws top filmmakers, celebrities, leading activists, social innovators, and well-known world adventurers like me to the historic downtown of Nevada City. This year's film selection includes The Adventures of Oranges, Among Giants, and The Last Mountain, along with numerous other films about the environment. In addition to those films, Nevada County Arts selected more than 56 artists to work displayed in several venues throughout downtown Nevada City, the Center for the Arts, Grass Valley, and Briar Patch during the 10th annual festival that ran last week, 13th through the 15th. The feature art to be displayed there was including sculptures, woodcuts, charcoal etchings, silkscreen prints, cartoons, painting, basket weaving, cartoons, and photography. Local artists Larry Jenkins and Judy Nicholson had works on display in an environmental photography exhibit at the Center of the Arts. Through my work is more art than documentary. It celebrates our local natural habitat, Jenkins said. For that reason, I was compelled to participate in the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. The images of all the Jenkins canvas prints on display were taken within 4 miles of Auburn. The artist also made the shadow box frames for the prints from scraps of locally harvested and milled madrone wood. They were unstained and finished with a natural wax. Nicholson, who lives in Loomis, shoots outdoor and equine photo art and composite patterns, forms, and focal points when framing her images. I strive to interpret scenic opportunities in my own unique way, mostly avoiding digital manipulation and enhancement, she said. And they were great. And that's it for local news today. We would like to, well, we don't want to thank the union, but we will. Amy Goodman, Reuters, Associated Press, and others, and Source Number News, especially you for watching. You can watch this on Comcast Cable, NCTV, Channel 11, free, not like some people we know, and 3 p.m., 7 o'clock, well, at night, 7:30 at night, and 8 a.m. in the morning. NevadaCountyTV.org, you can see us stream there. You can also watch the Wild and Scenic Film Festival there. We put that up there. GVTV.org, don't forget, Grass Valley Television, grassvalleytelevision.com, plays 24/7. We post to Facebook, YouTube, Blip.tv, and other sites, and RSS feed, and video podcast, and iTunes. Just search under video podcast for GVTV News. Content is controlled by the producer of this newscast, me. Grass Valley Television is not necessarily the opinion of NCTV, Digital Media Center, or me. Grass Valley Television also does a lot of videotaping and other things around town. If you have any interest in what we do, you can call us for information. Grass Valley Television, gmail.com, or 362-8889. This show is produced by Grass Valley Television of Rural Counties Television Network, and we'll see you tomorrow. It'll be Wednesday. Christopher's Old World Deli and Catering Company has brought its delicious food and service downtown Grass Valley. Do you like desserts? They got them. You like international style lunches? They got them. Christopher's Deli and Catering for parties, get-togethers, weddings, or whatever. Open 7 days a week.